Well, now an update about a big project that could have a big impact on the city of St. Augustine. After getting pushback on its latest plan, the developers of Sebastian Inland Harbor Project are now trying a new approach to get it approved. On your side's Jessica Clark explains.
The proposed Sebastian Inland Harbor Project would sit on King Street, just east of US 1. It's a very busy area and one of the main ways in and out of downtown St. Augustine. For years, various developers have eyed the 13-acre property along the Sebastian River, but it's currently vacant. Even the boat slips are empty. The latest proposal, which includes a hotel, apartments, shops, and a marina, is being met with opposition from people who live nearby, concerned about traffic, parking, and noise. So here's the latest twist. The owners want to change the property's zoning from something called a planned unit development, people call it a PUD, to the parcel's previous zoning category, something called residential general office. But why? According to the city's building and planning director, this would give the city less oversight. The owner would still get to build a hotel, but the city would have less say about what it looks like. It would require the building's heights to be lower, 50 feet high instead of 65 feet. And the developers would have to supply 100% of the parking, but it could be private, not public. It would mean less building, more parking, things that the neighbors have wanted. So will neighbors and the city commission go for it? It's still to be sorted out. In St. Augustine, Jessica Clark, First Coast News, on your side.